What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review in this busy weekend of reviews because there's a lot of stuff that popped up. It was like, hey, we should actually check that out.
Yeah.
And one that we definitely were going to check out because we're pretty much long-time fans of this band was the latest offering from Gorod, The Orb. This also comes out on the 10th of March, and this is actually an independent release as it stands. I believe when it comes out on physical media, there will be a label attached to it. I don't know which one, but we're going to go over it regardless because, again, we've been fans for a while. This band formed in 2005 in France. They were formerly known as Gorgasm from 1997 to 2005, but they changed their name because, well, there happens to be a U.S. band called Gorgasm that's reasonably popular, especially in like brutal death metal circles.
And somewhat attached to their names. So.
I mean, I get it. It's a pretty gnarly name.
Yep.
This is their 7th album overall. This is also their first in 5 years. In fact, this band was one of the last bands we saw before the pandemic.
Yep.
We saw them on tour with, what, Veilapanath and Wolf King?
Veilapanath and Wolf King, I think. I think that's who was on the bill. I don't know. It was a long time ago, but yeah, it was like... What, like 2 days before they shut everything down?
Yeah, and the crowd was pretty damn sparse there, and we already heard rumblings about this thing coming called COVID, and was like, it can't be that bad. Here we are years later going, no, that was pretty fucked up. And for those that don't know anything about this band, this is some really killer tech death / progressive metal. And progressive metal is something they've been kind of working in a little bit more because I would say this band started off as flat out tech death. I mean, if you're a fan of bands like Necrophagus, Archspire, Anata, like it is very much in that vein of just blistering riffs, constantly fucking buzzing with cool crawls and harmonies, blast beats, quick turnovers, fucking, riff changes galore. But here lately they've been kind of like slowing it down a little bit. Like, kind of a cool thing about Gorod in general is they don't mind groove. It's not just a blast beat fest. But proggy elements coming into this is really kind of added a lot. And I think probably the first one I started hearing a little bit more prog in was their album Maze of Recycled Creeds.
Maze of Recycled Creeds.
Yeah. And was like, wow, dude, there's like some really cool different dynamics here. And ever since then, they've been exploring that more.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what did it for me with Gorod. I think I was first introduced to them around Maze of Recycled Creeds. You were like, check out this record. I was like, holy shit.
Might have been Process of a New Decline because I got really hooked on Disavow Your God. That
it might have
whole tapping breakdown.
Yep.
It
might have been
still fucking awesome.
Yep. These guys are absolutely dizzying. There's few bands, I think, on the face of the planet that can do tech death really, really well and keep it as busy as these guys keep it while still making it grossly entertaining.
Yeah. It's always engaging. I think the riff work is always playful. That is very much on display here. The first 2 tracks are pretty much exactly what I expect from Gorod as far as their tech death side. We Are the Sun Gods and Crematheism, which I had to look up that word, and apparently that is the worship of inanimate objects based on their usefulness.
We Are the Sun Gods, though, starts to incorporate more of that proggy sound right around the bridge where you get this really cool drum and bass solo. Like, the bass is really popping.
I mean, their guitar work across the board, including the bass, is something I am always latched onto about this band. The
tapping that this band does, I know you hear tapping a lot in death metal, but they create whole songs with tapping.
Yeah, entire like riff runs and entire sections that are based on tapping melodies and really catchy progressions as far as, the tapping melodies. Like, this isn't just like, look at all the notes that I am hitting. These are like, no, these are like carefully calculated. They generate their own hooks. And generally the bass behind it is doing a lot of cool stuff. Like, it's doing more than just sort of like keeping those root notes going. It's kind of keeping up, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's more than setting a groove. It's more about adding the bass as almost like a third guitar.
And in terms of like them being flat out intense as hell, because I mean this band knows how to get insanely fast. The song Victory. All right, man, there are some guitar riffs on there where dude's pick hand is moving so damn quick, I'm pretty sure all the fucking bones in his wrist dissolved.
I mean, yeah, we're talking about 1,000-mile-an-hour tremolos and riffs here. Like, he's really cooking. Like, at this point, I feel tired for everyone involved. Not only the band, but the listener, to try to keep up with all that.
It is
It's dizzying.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. I think they probably like just taped a fucking guitar pick to some hummingbird's wings and just let them fly around the strings.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool to hear them just kind of keep this intensity rolling on here, man. It's very blast heavy, but at the same time, what I really like about this band is with their riff work, there's like a particular sort of sound and melody to a good chunk of it. And despite how intense and how brutal, like, you know, maybe the drums and the vocals are, the riffs are always playful, like energetic, kind of exploratory. Like they're kind of just noodling all about finding those right melodies, those right keys. And I think on this one, maybe more so, I think the solos themselves stand out a bit more.
A lot more neoclassical than typically what they're involved with as far as solos. In the song The Orb, especially, the lead in there is not only that neoclassical flow, but it's more bluesy too. Like there's a lot of different emotives going on behind all this fucking madness as far as leads are concerned.
And the proggy elements on this album, I think, stand out probably more so. This band has always found like a kind of a cool bridge between tech death and progressive metal. Like they have song structures that kind of, you know, are a little bit more elaborate, like progressive death metal or progressive metal in general, but they're hard on the fucking tech. Like it is a note a fucking second and constantly going, but at the same time, again, like rooted in melody and dynamics. And The Orb and Zevatiri, not sure what that word means, but I know that song is absolutely awesome, and this is where songwriting dynamics really come into play. There's a lot of shifts between heavier sections, softer sections. There's really great clean playing on it, and this band is continuing to experiment a little bit more vocally too. Especially on The Orb, you have like more clean, kind of gruff vocals, but they're kind of in the background, almost like kind of muttered and groaned. But you also have different, you know, registers in the harsh vocals, like hardcore screams, death metal roars. And I like how this song is just like a really interesting journey. Like it opens up with lush 80s synths, like very Tangerine Dream with the kind of a cool kind of
like
skittering,
a cool, like trip hoppy skitter thing to it.
It's this fun little rhythm behind it, and then it starts getting into this, well, decidedly more straightforward riff compared to a lot of the riffs on here. But they're also like a little bit more subdued. Like this melody is not so like in your face. It's kind of playing in the background a little bit. The bass actually comes out to play a little bit. You can actually hear it a little bit more. And with those like bluesy kind of like bends and hooks, like honestly, it kind of sounds like the tech death equivalent of Mastodon at times. And I really like that because Atmosphere's never been like a super huge thing with this band. Like mostly it's about that riff a minute style and on to the next section where they're going to just throw in this wild tapping harmony thing. You're going to like shit your pants over how fucking cool it is. But this album kind of like, I wouldn't say like pumps the brakes, but just kind of takes in the scenery a little bit and kind of opens up the playing, especially on like Waltz of Shades.
I love that fucking song.
What an interesting song. In terms of like the vibe, it is one of the most completely different songs on here. A lot of this, again, it's heavy, brutal, technical, but again, at the same time, kind of like playful and fun.
Well, in this instance, it really is kind of like a heavy waltz. It's weird. It's got kind of like a swingy, kind of airy flow to it. Man, that opening riff, that gross, dissonant, like hornet attack. It's
like probably the most sinister, dark sounding riff on here. Again, like a lot of the stuff, you know, playful, adventurous, technical, fun. This one's like, nah, man, we're getting fucking evil. Like it's dissonant and creepy. I love the dissonant harmonies and the tremolos. Like it's really just kind of creepy sounding.
And then the last song, and I'm not sure if this is just like what's on YouTube, because on Spotify doesn't even have this song. The song Strange Days is notably, I think, one of the most different dynamic things that this band has done yet. Very quiet, melodic intro, and then very musical, and it's all like clean vocals. I don't think there were any harsh vocals in this song. Very akin to like Opeth cleans.
This song is very different just in terms of like the sound of it, not only with the cleans, but there are, I don't know, like some scales and runs in there that kind of sound a little bit more like rooted in classic prog rock, like Yes and Genesis and shit like that, except again played by a tech death band that wants to kind of heavy it up and, you know, make it a little bit more shiny and new. And honestly, when dude was singing on here, like how it's kind of muffled and like kind of a lower tone, honestly, it kind of reminded me of, you know, Jim Morrison. Like, it's just, kind of this gruff, almost kind of bluesy kind of tone to it. And I don't know, it's very interesting. Like, he doesn't really get up in a higher register at all. It kind of stays, maybe like a little bit monotone, like there's a little bit of fluctuation.
Yep. And it's got this weird, like, wavy, almost 70s prog vocal effect on it.
Yeah. And this one may or may not have synths on it. And synths are on here, but generally the guitars are so out front and doing so much shit that you're like, I don't know if that was a synth or they were just playing fucking really fast
Like,
again.
it sounded like an organ, maybe, but I'm not 100% because there's also a million things happening.
I mean, that is to be expected with tech death. And in terms of issues, that has always been kind of an issue, though with this band, I think it's just a little bit more accessible. Like, I do love Archspire. I know there's a lot of people that don't fucking like that band, but I like them. They're fucking crazy and fun. And this band is, kind of along those same lines, albeit I would say, like, more melodic and maybe less concerned about being brutal, especially on this album. But I do have issues with some of the production. Like, namely, the drums are very loud on here, and all right, this is one of the few moments where I can say I can understand clicky drums in tech death because you need room for all the other elements to really breathe because it's so busy.
Right, because when you don't... Man, and I hate to say this too because I hate clicky drums, but when you allow for more of a natural sound with drums, they tend to bleed over a little bit. And that is also one of my issues. Like, there's so much happening here, and the drums are more out front and kind of bleeding into things that it makes the production sound a little bit muddy.
Especially in the low end.
Yep. And while that eventually clears up here and there, it's still, because there's a million things happening at any given time, it's still like, am I kind of losing a little bit of what's happening? Which is already hard enough to keep up with anyway.
Yeah. And, I mean, I will say that while I liked every song in here, certain songs, at least songs that seemed more akin to their, older albums, kind of got outshined by the more proggy ones. Because the proggy ones did a great job of blending in their, old sound. Like, you'd have good tech death flourishes, of course, the tapping harmonies and such, especially, again, on Savitri or Civitiri, however you say that, and The Orb. I think those are two giant standouts. And Waltz of Shades, just because that is a wildly different song. But, songs like Scale of Sorrows, Bring the Silence, and the opening track, Cream of Theism, they're good. They're awesome. They do everything that they do well. It's just, I feel like those songs are kind of stuff that they've done before. They've walked down that path. It's a solid path. They execute it well. I just think the newer stuff sounds more interesting because there's so much more being incorporated in the songs themselves and hearing them use different song structure. Like, it isn't just the blitz of riffs and blast beats. Like, these are really fucking, elaborate.
Well, they knock out the transitions well, even in the moments where there's, like, a start-stop motif, which happens a lot for transitions on this album. It's still done, like, correctly. It's just really odd. Like, the song structures are really odd. It's not a typical verse-chorus or bunch of riffs or look for a breakdown. Like, it's just weird. It's weird how it's all broken up. And then to be able to put proggy things in there on top of that, it's fucking nutty.
Yeah. But, I mean, this band did it exceptionally well once again. And, I dig this. I mean, I kind of knew I would, but I also knew that this band was definitely progressing in different territory with each release, like, kind of opening up their sound a bit. And, you kind of wonder if they're going to go, like, cross a bridge too far at some point. But I think they crossed the right bridge here, or at least are like going to have a halfway point in the bridge. Either way, this is a 4-star album for me. I dig this. I think this is really fucking solid. Again, some of the more straightforward tech death songs might get outshined by the proggier songs here because I think the proggy elements that they squeeze in, and again, the title track and Savitiri, again, I don't know if I've said that right, but I know that those songs are absolutely fantastic. They do everything the Gorod does well, and they also implement new stuff in there, which I think is really well executed, well written. It's absolutely fantastic stuff. This is yet another fucking banger from Gorod. I think this band pretty much has nothing but bangers. I own all their albums. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna own this one eventually because I gotta fucking get this one.
Right, because we looked for it and found out it was available import only.
Yeah.
So, we'll be waiting. But maybe buy it at the show. Maybe it's gonna be at the show.
Hey, there's an idea.
We might buy it at the show. Yeah, it's a 4 for me, too. I've always been a Gorod fan from the very beginning when I first heard them, when Nick said, hey, check out this wild band, because I've always been a Necrophagist fan too, and these guys are kind of akin to that as well. It's cool to watch this band progress yet again, because they, like Nick said, they've been pushing with this, toying with this idea of adding more progressive elements into their songs, especially with their last album, Ethera, which really, I think, took a dive more away from crazy noodles and just crazy blasty riffing into a more progressive territory. So I kind of knew that they were heading this direction anyway. This is executed really well, albeit it's a little odd at times to latch onto because there's so much going on. It's still really good. The band right now is tight as fuck. I don't know how, I mean, we're about to see it again live. I saw it live once and I was like, Jesus, but they are really tight and spot on. Albeit it does get a little muddy at times because there's so much happening, but then again, if it's an independent release and they did it themselves, good fucking job. All the songs are grossly entertaining, very unique, especially when you get into stuff like Waltz of Shades or even Strange Days. Very entertaining, kept my attention even though I was lost in chaos for a minute. I was still really happy about it. Great album. I don't expect anything less from these guys. I really don't. They're going to have to really release a fucking shitter for me to say anything other than this band whoops ass, period. So yeah, 4 for me. Good stuff.
So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below, thrallsmetal.com. Our store is there as well. We will be reloading stuff, but that will have to wait until we are back from Denver Death Fest.
Yeah, a fest that we had the chance to kind of helm and pick bands for and be a real big part of. It's been an awesome experience. I'm very thankful to have been a part of this. 3 days, April 20th through the 22nd. That's right, folks. 420 in Denver. How much cooler does it get than that? $60 for 3 days, $45 for 2, or if you want to just come out for 1 and pick your day, $25, which really isn't a bad deal considering it's that many bands. Thank you to all of our vendors and our sponsors and everybody that's been a part of this. It's been a super cool learning experience and really fun to see all come together. Come out there and have a beverage with us or something smokable, or who knows, come out and hang out, say hello, get your picture taken, slap high five, hang out with the bands. Enjoy yourself. It's a death metal festival.
And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. It means the world to us. I know the thank you part where we just get awkward and mushy in front of the camera.
Thank you.
Maybe partially erect. I don't know.
No.
We know that we enjoy this. We know that this has become a huge part of our lives, and you all fucking rule. You all keep us fucking going. You know, that and the litany of, you know, releases that keep pouring our way. Like, there's been a lot of cool stuff this year already.
Yep.
And there's
only in March.
Yeah, I know. There's plenty of year to go. So look forward to new content from us, because we're working on a whole bunch of different shit. But yeah, thank you all once again, and we will catch you later.